Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. 12. My mind grew very uneasy on the subject of the pale young gentleman. The more I thought of the fight. In crimson countenance, the more certain it appeared that something would be done to me. I felt that the pale young gentleman's blood was on my head, and that the law would avenge it, without having any definite idea of the penalties I had incurred. It was clear to me that village boys could not go stalking about the country, ravaging the houses of gentlefolks and pitching into the studious youth of England, without laying themselves open to severe punishment. For some days, I even kept close at home, on an errand, lest the officers of the county jail should pounce upon me. The pale young gentleman's nose had stained my trousers. I had cut my knuckles against the pale young gentleman's teeth, and I twisted my imagination into 1,000 tangles. Hail before the judges. Islands. My terrors reached their height. What a myrmidons of justice, specially sent down from London, would be lying in ambush behind the gate where the Miss Havisham, preferring to take personal vengeance for an outrage done to her house, might rise in those grave clothes of hers. Drawer pistol. Me in the brewery. The spirit of the pale young gentleman. That I never imagined him accessory to these rutilations. They always came into my mind as the acts of injudicious relatives of his. Features. However, go to Miss Havisham's I must. And go I did. And behold, nothing came of the late struggle. It was not alluded to in any way. And no pale young gentleman was to be discovered on the premises. I found the same gate open, and I explored the garden, and even looked in at the windows of the detached house. But my view was suddenly stopped by the closed shutters within, and all was lifeless of the young gentleman's existence. There were traces of his gore in that spot, and I covered them with garden mould from the eye of man. The long table was laid out. I saw a garden chair-like chair on wheels, that you pushed from behind. It had been placed there since my last visit, and I entered, that same day, of walking with her hand upon my shoulder around her own room, and across the landing, and round the other room, over and over and over again. We would make these journeys, and sometimes they would last as long as 3 hours at a stretch. I insensibly fell into a general mention of these journeys as numerous, for these purposes, or 10 months. As we began to be more used to one another, Miss Havisham talked more to me. To be? I told her I was going to be apprenticed to Joe. I believed, and I enlarged upon my knowing nothing and wanting to know everything, in hope that she might offer some help towards that desirable end. But she did not. On the contrary, she seemed to prefer my being ignorant, that I should be paid for my services. Estella was always about, and always let me in and out. But Nick told me I might kiss her again. Sometimes she would coldly tolerate me. Sometimes she would condescend to me. Sometimes she would be quite familiar with me. Sometimes she would tell me energetically that she hated me. Miss Evisham would often ask me in a whisper, or when we were alone, "Does she grow prettier and prettier?" Too. And when I said yes, for indeed she did, would seem to enjoy it greedily. Also, when we played at cards, Miss Havisham would look on, with the miserly relish of Estella's moods, whatever they were, and sometimes puzzled what to say or do. Miss Havisham would embrace her with lavish fondness, murmuring something in her that sounded like "break their hearts, my pride and hope." There was a song Joe used to hum fragments of at the forge, of which the burden was Old Club. This was not a very ceremonious way of rendering homage to patron saint, but I believe Old Club stood in that relation towards Miss. It was a song that imitated the measure of beating up on iron, and was a mere lyrical excuse for the introduction of Old Club's respected name. That you would time our boys round Old Club, with a thump and a sound Old Club. Beat it hard. Beat it out Old Club, with a clink for the start Old Club. Blow the fire. Blow the fire Old Club. Roaring dryer. Spring Harold Club. One day soon after the appearance of the chair, Miss Evisham suddenly saying to me, with the impatient movement of her fingers, "There. There. There. Playing." I was surprised into crooning this ditty as I pushed her over the floor, brooding voice as if she were singing in her sleep. After that, it became customary with us to have it as we moved about, and Estella would often join in. The whole strain was so subdued, even when there were three of us. But what could I become with these surroundings? How could my character fail to be influenced by them? Is it to be wondered at if my thoughts were dazed as my eyes roll when I came out into the natural light from the misty yellow rooms? Perhaps I might have told Joe about the pale young gentleman. Confessed. Under the circumstances, I felt that Joe could hardly fail to discern in the pale young gentleman an appropriate passenger to be put into the black velvet coach. Therefore, I said nothing of him. Besides, that shrinking from having Miss Evisham and Estella discussed, which had come upon me in the beginning, much more potent as time went on. I reposed complete confidence in no one but Biddy, but I told poor Biddy everything. Why it came natural to me to do so, and why Biddy had a deep concern in everything I told her, I did not know then, though I think I know now. Meanwhile, councils went on in the kitchen at home, fraught with almost insupportable aggravation to my exasperated spirit. That at Umblickuk, with my sister, Phil, that if these hands could have taken a linchpin out of his chaise cart, they would have done it. The miserable man was a man of that confined stolidity of mind, that he could not discuss my prospects without having me before him, as it were, where I was quiet in a corner, and then, putting me before the fire as if I were going to be cooked, would begin by saying, Anne, here is this boy. Here is this boy which he brought up by hand. Hold up your head, boy, and be forever grateful unto them which so did do. Anne, from my earliest remembrance, as already hinted, me before him by the sleeviest spectacle of imbecility only to be equalled by himself. And he and my sister would pair off in such nonsensical speculations about Miss Evesham, and about what she would do with me and for me, that I used to want quite painful to burst into spiteful tears, fly up Pumblick, and pummel him all over. In these dialogues, at every reference, while Pumblick himself, self-constituted my patron, would sit supervising me with a depreciatory eye, like the architect of fortunes who thought himself engaged on a very unremunerative job. In these discussions, Joe bore no part, but he was often talked at, while they were in progress, by reason of mice, just perceiving that he was not favourable to my being taken from the forge. I was fully old enough now to be apprenticed to Joe. Between the lower bars, my sister would so distinctly construe that innocent action into opposition on his part, that she would dive at him, take the poker out of his hands, shake him, and put it away. There was a most irritating end to every one of these debates, all in a moment, with nothing to lead up to it. My sister would stop herself in a yawn, and catching sight of me as it were incidentally, would swoop upon me with, "Come, there's enough of you. You get along to bed. You've got trouble enough for one night." But we went on in this way for a long time. A long time. When one day Miss Evesham stopped short as she and I were walking, she leaning on my shoulder, and said with some displeasure, "You are growing tall." I thought it best to hint, through the medium of a meditative look, this might be occasioned by circumstances over which I had no control. She said no more at the time, but she presently stopped and looked at me again, and presently again, and after that, looked frowning and moody. On the next day of my attendance, when our usual exercise was over, and I had landed her at her dressing table, she stayed me with a movement of her impatient fingers. "Joe Gargery, yes, you had better be apprenticed at once. Would Gargery come here with you, and bring your indentures? Be asked at any particular time. There, I know nothing about times. That him come soon. When I got home at night, and delivered this message for Joe. Period. She asked me and Joe whether we supposed she was doormats under our feet, and how we dared to use her so, and what company we graciously thought she was fit for. When she had exhausted a torrent of such inquiries, she threw a candlestick at Joe, burst into loud sobbing, brought out the dustpan which was always a very bad sign about on her coarse apron, and began cleaning up to a terrible extent. Not satisfied with the dry cleaning, she took up pail and scrubbing brush and cleaned us out of house and home, so that we stood shivering in the backyard. It was 10 o'clock at night before we ventured to creep in again. And then she asked Joe why he had married a nigger slave at once. Joe offered no answer, poor fellow, but stood feeling his whisker and looking dejectedly at me, as if he thought it really might have been a bit of speculation. To be continued.